The Fraser Institute is trying to convince Doug Ford to lower the wages of public sector workers in Ontario in order to reduce costs, even though Ontario has been posting massive surpluses for the last few years, which is mainly because of underspending on personnel anyway, but I digress. If you don't know what the Fraser Institute is, imagine if the political side of Palpatine's evil empire was a think tank in Ontario. Basically what they're saying is that public sector wages are way too high because they are slightly higher than private sector wages, and that can't be right. The free market should be correcting for these things, completely ignoring the whole idea that we are living in late-stage capitalism, but I digress. At a time when governments are facing serious financial pressures, they're not. Bringing government sector compensation in line with the private sector would help reduce costs without necessarily affecting services. It would 100% affect services. We already have a hard enough time retaining PSWs and nurses and other people in the private sector. Reducing their wages is not going to help that situation. And they blame pesky things like unionization for giving job security and pensions and sick days. God forbid people are paid a living wage and can afford to live in Ontario. Because what the report leaves out is that the private sector wages aren't actually keeping up with the cost of living. And specifically, wages for low-income earners are way too low, specifically in the private sector. Like the living wage in the GTA is on average $23 per hour at a minimum. And also, not only is Ontario posting massive surpluses, but Canada as a whole is doing economically extremely well with extremely low unemployment, record low unemployment, like better unemployment numbers than prior to the pandemic. And how would he even do this? The last time he tried to fight unions illegally, he got stopped by the Supreme Court because you can't just garnish people's wages for no reason. You can't just dismiss unions. You can't just pretend they don't exist. We have laws for a reason, Doug. But as I said in the beginning of the video, the Fraser Institute doesn't really care about the citizens of Ontario. Why? Because they're the economic equivalent of the guys in red.